Hey guys, I sure am happy to see you or hear from you. And we're in the time of year where people just put Christmas on everything. You know what I mean? Which is why today I want to talk to you about a guy who composed a real Christmas classic. It's called The Nutcracker. It is by Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky. And the original story of The Nutcracker was originally written, it was adapted by Alexandre Dumas, who wrote The Three Musketeers and The Count of Monte Cristo, which I still haven't read The Three Musketeers yet. Maybe I'll get to it one day. Anywho, let's move on to Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky was born on his birthday, May 7th, 1840. Now, if you look him up, it might say he was born at a different time. That's because the Russian calendar back in the 1800s is just a little bit different than the calendar we have now. Again, go to Britannica. Go to Britannica, where I got all my information, and look it up. All right, and he was born in... Wait, I already said when he was born. He was born on May 7th, 1840 in Tchaikovsky, Russia. His father was the manager of the metalworks. Tchaikovsky's grandmother was a pianist, and when he was 5, she gave him and his sister Alexandra lessons. At age 10, he went to an all-boys school called Jurisprudence in St. Petersburg, Russia. It was there when he was around all boys and hardly ever any girls. Do you see where this is going? And in 1854, Tchaikovsky's mother died of cholera. It was after that he began studying more music, and his father, as a sympathy gift, gave him a piano and a professional teacher. And it was in 1859, Pyotr graduated high school, and he attended St. Petersburg University as a music major. At the age of 21, he studied abroad in France, Germany, and England, and I highly recommend that you do that, because I studied abroad in England. Loved it. Loved every minute of it. I highly recommend that you go to London because, London is chaotic and it gets a bad rep, but it's a lot of fun. There's a lot to do in London, okay? It's just an amazing place. Anyway, back to Tchaikovsky. Mozart was a huge inspiration to him. In 1864, Tchaikovsky wrote his first overture, The Storm. And in 1865, he graduated college with his master's degree in music, and in 1866, he went to teach at Moscow University. It was also there he composed Winter Daydreams, which we will listen to all this later. And in 1867, while teaching, he fell in love with a male student named Edward Zach. And they dated in secret because not only were they student and teacher, gay relationships were very, very frowned upon back then. If you were outed to be gay, they sent you to Siberia because of the unfortunate stereotype that all gay people are pedophiles. That's just such a unfortunate stereotype. But sadly, Edward committed suicide when he was only 19. And Tchaikovsky dedicated Romeo and Juliet to him as a tribute. Now, there's something you gotta understand about the Romantic era, because Tchaikovsky was a Romantic composer. Composers often put their own emotions into the piece because the Romantic era was all about emotion, the emotion of mournfulness or afraid, fear, anxiety, all those different emotions rather than just happy or sad. Because they just really wanted to push the boundaries of music. And in 1871, Piotr composed the opera The Little Russian. He wrote that at his sister's house in Ukraine, fun fact. And in 1874, he wrote his piano concerto. And in 1875, he wrote a violin concerto. And in 1876, he started writing his most famous ballet of all time, Swan Lake, which premiered in 1877. And that very same year, he married a soprano singer named Antonino, although their marriage only lasted 3 weeks, and he ran away from her because she was psychotic. I don't want to look up all the marriage stories, but yeah, she was psychotic. And in 1880, his father died, and it was also in 1880 he married an older single widow, and she was rich too. So yeah, he got all her money when he married. So she was essentially his sugar mama. And it was also that year that he retired from teaching. And 1880 was a really big year for him because he premiered his 1812 overture, and it was about Russia's victory over Napoleon. So what they're talking about is back in 1812, Napoleon Bonaparte gathered the largest army Europe had ever seen. He had over 500,000 guys. He could have had over 600,000 men. And he marched them all into Russia. But he wasn't very well prepared because he didn't anticipate that the Russian summer would be hot. And also, his men lived off the land. He taught him how to do that. But the Tsar Alexander of Russia, he ordered all his people to burn the land, scorch the earth, just burn everything. His men just couldn't live off the land anymore. Which is why they starved up until they got into Moscow. But by then, the Tsar had fled Moscow to St. Petersburg. And Napoleon did occupy Moscow for a little bit, but Moscow went into chaos, and the people there just started burning it down because they did not want Napoleon to have it. And it was also, while Napoleon was in Moscow, it got cold. Stupid cold. So, yep, Napoleon knew, I gotta get out of here. So he took his army and marched out of there. But the Russian soldiers were far more equipped to deal with the cold. So they used guerrilla warfare, picked them off one by one. And many deserted. Many froze to death, and many more starved to death. And when Napoleon came back to France, he hung his head in shame because a vast majority of his army was gone. And he didn't really get anything out of it. So it was an embarrassing defeat. Well, that's my spiel on that part of Russian history. Let's get back to Tchaikovsky. After 20 years of teaching, he retired to a country house in Klin, Russia. In 1887, he became a conductor and went on tour with his own personal band. And in 1888, he did a big tour of France, Germany, Czech Republic, Italy, and England. He went to all those places. And in 1889, he released Sleeping Beauty, another famous ballet. In 1891, Tchaikovsky performed at Carnegie Hall in New York City. Very big deal. And in 1892, he released his most famous piece, The Nutcracker. Pretty cool. And in 1893, his last symphony came out, Pathétique. But shortly after it premiered, the day after, as a matter of fact, he got sick and he died of cholera 4 days later. The same thing that killed his mom. Piotr, I just don't know what to say, bud. Well, Piotr, you were a very, you still are a very, very famous composer. Not just any Russian composer, you are the Russian composer. You were Russia's most famous composer, Piotr. So, Mr. Tchaikovsky, you should be very proud of what you did in life. I know I would be. Alright, now let's get into his music. This is his first overture, The Storm, in E minor. Yeah, E minor, alright! Should be coming up. Oh. Alright, that was only part of the overture, but I encourage you to look up the whole thing. It's pretty cool. Alright, up next we got Winter Daydreams, which is also known as his first symphony. Oh, nope, not that part. Let's start over. Here we go. Yeah, pretty cool, right? Yeah. Now, this next piece coming up, I think you're gonna know this one. You younger people might know this one from the episode of SpongeBob where Squidward falls in love with a Krabby Patty, and he makes a mutant Krabby Patty octopus baby with it. Yeah, he does that in the episode, in one of the scenes. And that episode is called Just One Bite, by the way. Look it up. You know what? I'm actually curious. Is that the real title of the episode? I'm gonna look it up. Just One Bite. Hold on. Yep, Just One Bite. That's what it's called. Just One Bite. Yep. But watch an episode of SpongeBob because the piece I'm about to play is in this. It's in that episode. Okay. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Oh, sorry. Ad. Wait, no, this is an ad. Sorry. All right, they're about to play this. This is Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet. And this is from Radio Philharmonic Orchestra. That's what's played by. All right, so I've made you listen to it long enough. Now I'm gonna get to the part that was in the SpongeBob episode and the best part of the piece. Although the reason why I have such a soft spot for this piece is because I played clarinet in this piece, so I sat in on the orchestra that was playing on this piece. Not the specific orchestra that's playing right now, but I have played this with a symphony band. I have. All right, so this is the big hit of the piece that's coming up. Okay, that's enough of that. Whew, I made you listen to that for a long time because it's just such a beautiful piece. Not that the other pieces aren't good. It's just that one. I really think I I think you've heard part of that piece somewhere. All right, now this is we're not gonna listen to the whole thing, but this is his second symphony called The Little Russian, and this is by the Grant Park Music Festival Orchestra. All right, guys. So I hope you liked that piece because that's enough of that one. All right, that was The Little Russian by Tchaikovsky. It was his second symphony. Now, up here we have his piano concerto. This is Tchaikovsky's piano concerto, number 1, in B flat minor. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool. That was part of his piano concerto. Now this is Swan Lake, but I'm not going to make you listen to the whole of Swan Lake. I just want you guys to listen to the very famous part of Swan Lake that really got it famous. Only 3 minutes, I promise. That was cool, wasn't it? And that was Swan Lake, one of the most famous ballets of all time. Yeah, I'm sorry, I forget things sometimes, which is why guys, I better tell you, I've had a really, really long past couple of months. They've been hard. But I'm happy I get to talk to you about music history. And up next, we got 1812 Overture by Tchaikovsky, of course. And this edition has cannons in it. Pretty cool, huh? Because... Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Okay, that's as much as I'm going to get into, but remember, 1812 Overture has cannons. Although, depending on what the cannon's made out of, would a cannon be a brass instrument or a percussion instrument? I don't know. And yep, and that was 1812 Overture. You getting tired of listening to Tchaikovsky music? Joke's on you. We're only about halfway through. Play it! This is Sleeping Beauty. Okay, and that was most of the Sleeping Beauty Waltz by Tchaikovsky. Yeah, we're going through his whole discography, people. Yeah. Now, I do think you're going to know this next piece because it is very often played around Christmas time, and it was in the movie The Elf. Only it's just a bit of a different version. But this is The Nutcracker March by Tchaikovsky from the Nutcracker Ballet. that was the Nutcracker March by Tchaikovsky. Now, we're on to another very famous piece that's played throughout the holidays, Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. Which, God, I got gayer just by saying that. Oh, alright, had to cut that off for a minute there. This episode's getting pretty long. Alright. So, now, on to Pas de Deux by Tchaikovsky again, and this is from the Nutcracker. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm playing the Nutcracker so much. Well, that's because at this time of year, the Nutcracker is really popular because despite the Nutcracker having nothing to do with Jesus or Santa or the meaning of Christmas or peace or togetherness, it takes place around Christmas time, and it's very popular around Christmas time. So, yeah, we're going to listen to it. This is Pas de Deux. Pas de Deux. Pas de Deux. right, that's enough of that because, again, this episode's getting pretty long, so we got to get through this. All right, so this is the ending of Tchaikovsky's Fate Symphony, which is his 4th symphony. Okay, all right. Home stretch, guys, I promise. Okay, that's about all we'll listen to of that. And this is his final symphony and the last piece I'm going to make you guys listen to. We'll only listen to about 3 minutes of it and I will let you go. All right? All right. This is his Pathétique Symphony, also known as his final symphony. 3 minutes, guys. You got this. Nope. Clapping does not count. That's it. Okay, that is it. And that was most of Tchaikovsky's work. Well, maybe not most of it, but a good, decent majority of Tchaikovsky's work. Whew, he had a lot of great music. And he was also my first gay composer on the channel. Congratulations, Tchaikovsky. Well, now that you've listened to all the music and I've talked your ear off about Tchaikovsky, you're free to go. Class dismissed.